Scott,
Hi.
What video game pissed you off?
I'm not gonna lie, it's Jedi Survivor, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Only the performance mode, only because that game released in a genuinely unacceptable state, and I will not accept the state that it released in, which is the same sentence twice, but that's how much I hated it. Honestly, like, how are we still releasing games with performance modes that are not actually sticking to 60 FPS? Final Fantasy 16 would like a word as well, considering that it drops to 720p in the battles to make sure it maintains a frame rate. Jedi Survivor is one of the most abysmal examples of this. It took 6 official patches to get the frame rate remotely stable in the performance mode. Just genuinely ridiculous. It's a £70 game. We're all showing up for it. The game's genuinely brilliant when it's allowed to actually work. It's just a terrible technical, side of things. That side of the game is just an absolute mess. And like I said, it took them about 6 official patches to get it remotely acceptable, but we're 2 months on from launch and you still can't reliably just pick it up and play it the way that it was supposed to be, in theory, the way that we all expected it to be in the trailers. My experience with that game was largely positive in terms of what I was doing on screen. It's just that when I think about the moment-to-moment feel of it, it was abysmal. There was so much screen tearing, so much pop-in, so many frame rate dips. It was just unacceptable, genuinely. It was ridiculous. And so it's that. And the entire time I went through it, there's a whole bounty system in that game that as soon as it started being talked about and I met the character to do it with, I was like, this sounds awesome. Cage. And then that part of the game just locked forever. It just says unavailable on my screen. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm unavailable then.
No bounties for you.
Not a single one. So I finished that game, loved it to a point, but I love it so much because it was an absolute technical disaster. So please release finished games or workable games, please.
Can you say that all again, but in Huttese?
No.
Josh.
Hi.
What video game pissed you off?
Right, I don't normally get pissed off by video games. I like to think I'm a pretty easily pleased guy. Like, I'm grumpy as sin, but I'm easily pleased when it comes to video games. So, I'm not really a huge Saints Row fan. I was never into, like, the original games. I was not necessarily looking forward to the 2022 reboot, but I was kind of its target audience. Someone who didn't have all of this expectation going into how the humor's changed, how the, aesthetic might have altered, what they were updating, what they weren't. It dropped at a time where all I wanted was a mediocre open world game that gave me a sense of fun and a sense of anarchy that I could dip into for a little bit. And it's a testament to just how shoddy this game was that it couldn't even give me that. It couldn't even live up to the mediocre expectations that I had of it. And I just think, what a shame. If you can't even be a good 6 out of 10 game, like, why bother? Why bother going to all this trouble of rebooting the entire franchise, of trying to put Saints Row back on the map? It's just like, that feeling where you didn't expect anything and you were still disappointed? It was that. I didn't get pissed off at it for long, but for a few weeks there I thought, like, come on, man. Like, wait, what's going on?
All right. Which video game pissed you off?
Right, again, so I've got to agree with my boy Josh Brown. I don't really get pissed off at video games anymore. There's so many big problems in life, why get annoyed at a video game? However, I will talk today about one video game that did indeed kind of, really royally peeved me off. And that is Transformers Rise of the Dark Spark. Now, I'm not a big Transformers guy, but I've always had an affection for that franchise. I, had occasional Transformers toys growing up. I enjoyed the original Michael Bay movie. I think that's a really fun time. And I like the whole thing, and I like Peter Cullen, I like Frank Welker, I like Transformers. And, back when licensed games were bigger than they are now, there were 2 absolutely brilliant ones that came out at the beginning of the 2010s. That was Transformers War for Cybertron and Transformers Fall of Cybertron, developed by a studio called High Moon. And those games were way better than they had any right to be. Like, they're up there for me with, like, Batman Arkham and the Ghostbusters video game as being like, these are great, examples of what to do with the license and, really authentically replicate something, but also putting your own stamp on it. And those games were just, they were great. I really love them. Like, obviously not, pushing boundaries like the third-person shooter genre, but in terms of, they're still in that Transformers mix of, like driving and shooting, and at the same time having a really cool, unique story that takes place before the original cartoon set on the Civil War on Cybertron. Those games were a blast. Yeah. And the second game, Fall of Cybertron, that was genuinely brilliant. Like, they have the Dinobots in there. You can play as Grimlock, man. You can play as Grimlock. He looks so cool. And also Jetfire's in it. And I feel like Seymour Skinner right now. When Ralph Wiggum gives him the Star Wars toys, he's like, there's Han and Chewie. That was me playing Transformers Fall of Cybertron, having a great time. So naturally, I assumed that, you know, Activision, being the kind souls that they are, would allow High Moon Studios to go and finish the series, because the second game ends with a big cliffhanger of them going to Earth. You know, the whole thing where they're going through the portal. So you assume the next game is gonna, oh wow, they're finally gonna do their own spin on the original G1 cartoon. That didn't happen. Instead, we got Transformers Rise of the Dark Spark, which wasn't developed by High Moon. It was developed by a team called Edge of Reality, which became a sort of really iffy half-sequel between Fall of Cybertron and Transformers Age of Extinction. So we've gone from having our own unique mythos here to then kind of shoehorning it into the Bay movies. And the worst part about this, I was like, you know what, maybe I can suffer this. Maybe they've got bigger plans for High Moon, because High Moon at the time were developing the Deadpool game. But of course, the Deadpool game was kind of not that well received. It didn't sell well, if I recall, as well. Activision ended up losing the Marvel license, and by that point, they were kind of moving away from the licensed game biz to focus on Call of Duty. And that's basically what happened to High Moon Studios. They, after the failure of Deadpool, they got absorbed into the big Call of Duty machine, and they've remained a Call of Duty support studio ever since. And every single time I see a trailer for a new Call of Duty game and it has High Moon Studios' name on it, I think, God damn you, Activision. We had such a cool thing going here. In terms of just licensed games in general, there are a lot of bad ones, also a lot of fun ones that came from that era. And it just remains to this day the most infuriating thing to me, that instead of finishing that trilogy, we had to get, you know, a Deadpool game that is aged like milk, because Deadpool is not cool anymore. I'm sorry, children. And then now they're doing Call of Duty. And it just sucks. I already know what happens to them. I've seen the original cartoon, but I wanted to see High Moon put their own stamp on that, and it's very annoying. Activision, go suck an Energon cube. Yeah, stick it to the man.
Woo!
Woo!
Dan Durkin, which game pissed you off, sir?
Which game pissed me off the most?
As you
can see, I've got a prop. Do you know what this is from?
Are you going to stand on that? Are you going to burn it?
Maybe. I was planning on throwing it. Anyway, Gears of War 4. Now, the multiplayer of Gears of War 4. I'm not proud of this, but I just checked my stats and I've put 37 days into the multiplayer of Gears. I don't know. Someone Google that. Yeah, do that now. Yeah. 37 days. I got a diamond in escalation, which is the highest rank. Just putting that out there. But anybody who's played Gears of War 4 will know that when you die and you've done damage to go on, Ewan.
888 hours.
Okay, I'll take that. Joe, put the picture up here to prove that I'm not. Yeah. Anyway, when you do damage to someone and then die, it shows you how much damage you've done to that player. So if anyone, just how much damage. Like, so you've got 100%, and if I shoot you once and I do 50%, it would show me. Yeah. If you kill me, it would show me that I've done 50% to you. And anyone who knows, when I mention this number, which is 83%, anyone who's played Gears 4 like a little bit will know that this number will just cause you like PTSD and give you like NAM flashbacks of this. So there was this whole thing with the shotgun. Obviously Gears is about like shotgun gameplay. I could walk up to you, Scott, right now, be 2 feet away from you, within, they call it gib range, right. And I could shoot you point blank and you should die, but there was like this bug or whatever, you could shoot someone point blank and you wouldn't kill them, and then they'd turn around, shoot you from the same distance, kill you, and this number would pop up. It was always 83%, always, and it's just like, just thinking about what pissed us off the most in my whole entire life is this goddamn number, 83%. They even, in Gears 5, they even put like a little Easter egg in Gears 5 with this 83% thing, and it's just
triggered all the nightmare flashbacks.
Sounds like a skill issue.
I'm going to come over there at 83% you in a second. So yeah, Gears 4, 83%. It sucks.
You tell her. Decide which video game pissed you off.
So recently, I think, depending on when this came out, I did a big ranking of every Resident Evil game.
Yes.
Woo! And I'm not going to pick the bottom one because it's not quite... I mean, it's a terrible game, but the problem with this entry is that it disappointed me so much. Fairly low on that list is Resident Evil RE-verse.
Yeah.
So I've also gone multiplayer, but mine is not a specific, like a little number. Actually, maybe it is. It's just like barely 0 because there is almost no content in it. And God, the journey that game went on is sort of like a beta. And Resident Evil fans, lots of them go, I don't want multiplayer. I don't want to. It's like a just sort of third-person shooter deathmatch thing. It had a cool gimmick where if you die, you come back as a monster, and then you can hunt down your aggressor and get extra points. So that's kind of neat. The beta was sort of basic, but it showed some promise. The game was supposed to launch with Resident Evil Village. It came out a year and a half later when the DLC did. It was sort of like that, you know. This is also here, and in a year and a half delay, they basically done nothing with it. It launched with 2 maps. It got another one as DLC, and it basically had 8 characters, and all of them, half of them were the same. Like they literally, the Hound Wolf Squad, which are these sort of soldier dudes from the end of Resident Evil Village that help out Chris. They all dress the same. That's pretty much all of the roadmap was just them. And they showed them in the trailer, and you go, those are all going to be skins for the same character, surely. And they're all standing next to each other as well. It's like, oh, team deathmatch, that'll be nice. There's no team deathmatch, and the entire roadmap was, here are 4 dudes, 5 dudes with the same binoculars. This one's wearing jeans, this one's wearing cargo pants. That was like literally it. It was like,
Whole squad.
and I know not everyone wants like a, frenetic multiplayer shooter out of Resident Evil, but like I was willing to give it a chance, and it was kind of fun in a sort of goofy, almost kind of like Smash Brothers celebration of Resident Evil way. And they just didn't bother at all. They clearly didn't put any effort into it.
I didn't even know that thing came out.
Exactly!
realise
And you
that
know what,
was
Scott? You're all better off for it. Like, we routinely check the Steam charts for that game, see how many people are playing, and it's like 6 people.
Oh, 6 people.
So, yeah, exactly. There's going to be 6 people disappointed when those servers get turned off, and no more. Dreadful.